Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mir, ni hao, buenos dias, buenos tardes, hezeche, aquaba, welcome. What up, though? This is Storytelling Therapy, session numero cuatro. And today we have cuatro stories. The stories for today include the Langar Surprise, Caliph Umar, Menelik, and the Yaka Fiend. So the first story today is the Langar Surprise. And this is a story that comes from Sikh tradition of India, Punjab. And this particular story is most proximately provided by brethren from SikhNet.com. This is the Langar Surprise, otherwise known as Guru Gobind Singh and the Langar Disguise. Have you ever heard that God lives in cozy homes? For us, our homes are the same as the Guru's home, because in our homes we treat each other with respect. We're always friendly to everyone, and we feed anyone who comes, just like the Guru's Langar. Langar is where we feed everyone, anytime, any day, day or night. Everyone is welcome to eat langar. They may be strangers, they may be smelly or pretty, they may be black or white. They may even be from Mars or Venus. It doesn't matter. Everyone is fed side by side. Can you imagine if your home was just like a langar hall? This is the story of how we learned that our homes are the Guru's home. Hundreds of years ago, the 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Rai, was our leader. He was young and strong, he often laughed out loud, and his love for God was deep and constant. Those who were near him experienced joy and bliss. It was a world filled with fun challenges and deep devotion. The Sikhs always wanted to know what kind of lesson would he teach next. Once he declared to his beloveds, everyone must make langar in their own homes. O Sikhs of mine, listen, your house is a langar hall to feed all travelers and guests. Feed the needy. No one should ever leave your home without being served. Everyone listened to what he said, and the Sikhs became famous for serving and taking care of others. Still, Guruji wanted to test just how ready the Sikhs were. Were they only ready sometimes, or were they ready all the time? So one day, very early in the matin, something very funny happened. It was the holy mischief of the master, the complete man, Guru Gobind Rai himself, put on a disguise. He dressed just like a common traveler. Now, normally Guruji always wore clothes that were perfect and clean without even a single wrinkle. But that matin he put on dirty old clothes so no one would recognize him. He went to the homes of his devotees, their langar halls. He came at the most inconvenient time. It was early in the matin, so that the Sikhs were just waking up. They were getting ready for the day, washing up, starting their prayers. He would knock on the door and say, "Sorry to disturb you. I am just a humble traveler. Do you have any chapatis that I can eat?" It's truly early. You must be on an early schedule. Sorry, but we don't have anything ready for you right now. Food will be cooked later. Come back later and we can feed you then. The master was testing his beloveds. He wanted to show them one simple thing in an unforgettable way. He showed them that they were still a little bit selfish and not yet completely selfless. They still needed some time for themselves. They weren't there for others at every moment. So the master went from door to door. "Sorry to disturb you at this time. I'm a traveler. Do you have any dal that I can eat?" One man replied, "Excuse me? It's so early. It's not breakfast time yet. Besides, dal takes a long time to cook. We'll be happy to serve you. Please just come back later." As the master went from one house to another, he smiled and his eyes twinkled. Not one Sikh was ready to serve him yet. Finally, he came to the house of a man called Nandlal. Nandlal was a wise poet, and he loved the true Guru. Even though he was 23 years older than Guru Gobind Rai, he became his devotee. His heart blossomed in the Guru's court. He was full of devotion and love, and he always prayed to be at the feet of the true Guru. The beloved Nandlal hopped up to greet his guest. "Welcome, welcome, friend." Guru in disguise said, "Excuse me, sir." Nandlal quickly replied, come in, please sit down and relax." The Guru said, "I am just a humble traveler. Do you have any food?" And Nandlal quickly replied without hesitation, "Sir, you don't need to ask. Food is just now coming." He was so happy to get the chance to serve. He immediately brought whatever food he could. There was some raw dough, there was some dal that was just half cooked, some raw vegetables, and some butter. He placed the uncooked food in front of his guest with great grace and honor. Nandlal generously said, "Help yourself to everything here. Have as much as you want. However, if you will allow me to, I will roll the dough and cook it to make warm chapatis. I will cook the dal until it is soft, and I will cook the veggies until they are very yummy. It is my honor to serve you in the name of my master. Please relax and enjoy yourself." Bhai Nandlal truly loved to serve. Guruji was very happy. Guruji enjoyed the food, and the food was full of loving energy. Bhai Nandlal ji truly took the Guru's order to heart. No one leave your house without being served. Whoever knocked on his door was sure to leave Nandlal's house completely satisfied. And in this cozy and loving way, God lived in the home of Bhai Nandlal. The next Matin, Guruji told everyone, "In our city there is only one temple of hospitality, only one true langar, and that is Bhai Nandlal's home. Nandlal speaks the language of love and devotion. Nandlal blesses us all. His commitment is pleasing. It is this love that wins all hearts. Running such a langar, the Sikhs become truly rich. In this way, Bhai Nandlal's langar is most successful." The Sikhs smiled and recognized that their beloved Guruji had tested them. Even though they were friendly, they still hadn't gone all the way. Bhai Nandlal was tyar bar tyar, always ready. He was in a holy state. He happily provided langar to everyone without hesitation or excuses. When you become selfless, then you never have excuses and you are always happy. Bhai Nandlal became the example of how all of us need to treat guests. As Sikhs, we never stop learning and improving ourselves. He taught us that love has no limit and serving has no limit. Whoever comes to our home, we give them the deepest respect. We treat them as the great person they are. We even treat them like a saint. Bhai Nandlal said, "Getting water for the saints is equal to being the greatest emperor of the world. Cooking food for them is further pleasant than all the paradises put together. Preparing the Guru's langar is equal to all wealth, riches, and magical superpowers. Holy people take care of the poor, and one feels humble just being around them. The Guru's holy word is within all things, everywhere." This was the mischief of Guru Gobind Rai. Yes, he had disguised himself and tricked his Sikhs. And then he taught them and all of us an unforgettable lesson. A lesson about how to treat others. A lesson in how to be a benevolent host. A lesson in how to serve and how God lives in cozy homes. That is the story of the Langar surprise. The next story is Caliph Umar and the ambassador. This comes from the tradition of Islam and Sufi as well, Sufism. It is specifically provided, or most approximately provided, from Rumi Udur, a blog on Blogspot. This is the story of Caliph Umar and the ambassador. How the ambassador of Rum came to the commander of the faithful Umar. May Allah be well pleased with him, and witnessed the gifts of grace with which Umar, may Allah be well pleased with him. To Umar in Medina there came through the wide desert an ambassador from the emperor of Rome. He said, "O ye attendants, where is the palace of the Caliph, that I may take thither my horse and baggage?" The folk said to him, "He has no palace. Umar's only palace is an illumined spirit. Though he has a great renown from being commander of the faithful, he has no dwelling except a hut like the poor. O brother, how wilt thou behold his palace when hair has grown in the eye of thy heart? Purge thy heart's eye of hair and defect, and then hope to behold his palace. Whoever hath a spirit purged of sensual desires will at once behold the presence of the holy porch." When Muhammad ﷺ was purged of this fire and smoke of human passions, wheresoever he turned his face was the face of Allah. Inasmuch as thou art a friend to the evil suggestions of the malign one, Satan, how wilt thou know the true meaning of "there is the face of Allah"? Everyone in whose breast the gate is opened will behold from every city the soleil shining. Allah is manifest amongst others as the moon amidst the stars. Lay two finger ends on their two eyes, and wilt thou see aught of the world? Deal justly, confess that thou wilt see nothing. If thou dost not see this world, yet it is non-existent. The fault lies not save in the finger of thy evil self. Come, lift the finger from thine eye, and then behold whatsoever thou wishest. To Noah his people said, Where is the holy recompense? He said, On the other side of they cover themselves with their garments. Ye have wrapped your faces and heads in your clothes. Of necessity ye have eyes and see not. Man is eye, and all the rest is worthless skin. The sight of that eye consists in seeing the beloved. When there is not sight of the beloved, the eye is better blind. The beloved who is not everlasting is better further away and out of sight. When the ambassador of Rum admitted these fresh spiritual words into his hearing, gave ear to them, he became further full of longing. He fixed his eye on seeking Umar. He let his baggage and horse be lost. He was going in every direction after that man of great accomplishment, inquiring madly for him, saying, Can there be in the world such a man, and he be hid, like the spirit from the world? He sought him, that he might be as a slave to him. Inevitably, the seeker is a finder. An Arab woman of the desert saw that he was a stranger guest. Look, said she, there is Umar under that palm. There he is under the palm tree apart from the people. Behold the shadow of God asleep in the shade. How the ambassador of Rum found the commander of the faithful, Umar, may Allah be well pleased with him, sleeping under the palm tree. He came thither and stood further off. He saw Umar and fell a trembling. And all came upon the ambassador from that slumbering man. A sweet ecstasy lodged in his soul. Love and awe are contrary to each other. He saw those two contraries united in his heart. He said to himself, I have seen many kings. I have been great in esteem and chosen for honor in the presence of sultans. I had no awe or dread of kings, but awe of this man has robbed me of my wits. I have gone into a jungle of lions and leopards, and my face did not change color because of them. Often where the ranks are arrayed on the field of battle, have I become fierce as a lion, at the time when the affair is grievous and desperate. Many a heavy blow have I suffered and inflicted. I have been stouter in heart than all the others. This man is asleep on the earth, unarmed, and yet I am trembling in my 7 limbs, my whole body. What is this? This is all of Allah. It is not from created beings. It is not of this man who wears the frock of a dervish. Whoever is afraid of Allah and has chosen fear of Allah as his religion, the jinn and mankind and everyone who sees him are afraid of him. Thus meditating, he folded his hands reverently. After a while, Umar sprang up from sleep. How the ambassador of Rum saluted the commander of the faithful, may Allah be well pleased with him. He did homage to Umar and salam, and the Prophet said, First the salam, then the talk. Then he, Umar, said, To thee greeting, called him to come forward, reassured him, and bade him sit down by his side. Fear ye not is the hospitality offered to those who fear. That is proper entertainment for one who is afraid. When one is afraid, they make him feel secure. They soothe his fearful heart. How should you say, Fear not to one who has no fear? Why give lessons to him? He needs no lessons. Umar made that disturbed mind be of benevolent cheer, and made his desolate heart be flourishing, happy. Afterwards he addressed to him subtle discourses, and spoke of the holy attributes of Allah, how benevolent a friend is Allah, and of the loving kindnesses of Allah to the Abdul saints, in order that he, the ambassador, might know the meaning of maqam, permanent station, and hal, passing state. The hal is like the unveiling of that beauteous bride, whilst the maqam is the king's being alone with the bride. The unveiling is witnessed by the king and by others as well, but at the time of being alone with the bride, there is no one except the mighty king. The bride unveils before commons and nobles alike. In the bridal chamber, the king is alone with the bride. There is many one of the Sufis who enjoy hal, but he that has attained to maqam is rarer amongst them. He, Umar, reminded him of the stages traversed by the soul, and he reminded him of the journeys of the spirit, and of the time which has ever been void of time, and the station of holiness which has ever been majestical, and of the atmosphere wherein the simurj of the spirit before this material life has flown and experienced the bounty of holy grace. Every single flight thereof being greater than the horizons of this world, and greater than the hope and greed of the longing lover. When Umar found the stranger in appearance a friend, in actuality he found that his soul was seeking to learn the divine mysteries. The Shaykh The Sheikh Umar was adept, and the disciple, the ambassador, eager. The man rider was quick, dexterous, and the beast belonged to the royal court, was nobly bred and docile. That spiritual guide Umar perceived that he, the ambassador, possessed the capacity for receiving guidance. He sowed the benevolent seed in the benevolent soil. How the ambassador of Rum questioned the commander of the faithful, may Allah be well pleased with him. The man said to him, O commander of the faithful, how did the spirit come to the earth from above? How did the infinite bird go into the cage? He replied, Allah recited spells and incantations over the spirit. When Allah recites spells over the non-existences which have no eye or ear, they begin to stir. Because of Allah's spells, the non-existences at that very moment are dancing joyously into existence. When again Allah recited a spell over the existent, at Allah's word the existent marched back post-haste into non-existence. Allah spake into the ear of the rose and made it laughing, blooming. Allah spake to the stone and made it a cornelian of the mind. Allah spake to the body a sign message so that it became spirit. Allah spake to the soleil so that it became radiant. Again Allah puts into its ear a fearful saying, and upon the face of the soleil fall 100 eclipses. Consider what the speaker chanted into the ear of the cloud so that it poured tears from its eye like a water skin. Consider what Allah has chanted into the ear of the earth so that it became regardful and has ever since remained silent. Whosoever in perplexity is sorely troubled, God has spoken the riddle into his ear, that Allah may imprison him in two doubtful thoughts, namely, shall I do what Allah told me, or the contrary thereof? From the decree of Allah also one side obtains the preponderance, and from that holy quarter he chooses one of the two alternatives. If thou wouldst not have the mind of thy spirit in a state of perplexity, do not stuff this cotton wool into thy spiritual ear, so that thou mayest understand those riddles of Allah, so that thou mayest apprehend both the secret sign and the open. Then the spiritual ear becomes the place where inspiration descends. That is, where wahi, inspiration, descends. What is wahi? A speech hidden from sense perception. The spiritual ear and eye are other than this sense perception. The ear of discursive reason and the ear of opinion are destitute of this inspiration. The word compulsion, jabr, made me impatient, uncontrollable for love's sake, whilst it confined in the prison of compulsion him who is not a lover. This is union with Allah, and it is not compulsion. This is the shining forth of the moon, this is not a cloud. And if this be compulsion, it is not the compulsion of suffered by the vulgar, it is not the compulsion of exerted by the evil commanding will, self-willed soul. O son, only they know the true meaning of compulsion, in whose hearts Allah has opened the sight of the spiritual eye. To them the unseen things of the future become manifest, to them recollection of the past became naught. Their free will and compulsion is different from that of ordinary men. In oyster shells, drops of rain are pearls. Outside of the shell, it is a drop of water, small or great, but within the shell, it is a small or big pearl. Those persons have the nature of the musk deer's gland. Externally, they are as blood, whilst within them is the fragrance of musk. Do not say, this substance externally is blood. How should it become a musky perfume when it goes into the gland? Do not say, this copper externally was despicable. How should it assume a nobility in the heart midst of the elixir? In thee the matter of free will and compulsion was a mere fancy, but when it went into them, it became the light of divine majesty. When bread is wrapped in the tablecloth, it is the inanimate thing so called, but in the human body it becomes the glad spirit of life. It does not become transmuted in the heart of within the tablecloth. The animal soul transmutes it with the water of Salbil. O thou who readest aright, such is the power of the soul. What then must be the power of that soul of soul? The portion of flesh which is man, endowed with intelligence and soul, cleaves mountain and sea and mine. The strength of the mountain-riving soul is shown in the splitting of rocks. The strength of the soul in the moon was split asunder. If the heart should open the lid of the wallet of this mystery, the soul would rush in rapture towards the highest heaven. That is the story of Caliph Umar and the ambassador. The third story for this session is Menelik This is a story that comes from the tradition of Ethiopia as well as the tradition of Israel. This specific rendering comes from translation from Chabad. The Tanakh, it is the first book of Kings, chapter 10. When the Queen of Sheba heard of Solomon's fame because of the name of Elohim, she came to test him with riddles. And she came to Jerusalem with a very large retinue, with camels bearing spices and very much gold and precious stones. And when she came to Solomon, she spoke with him all that was in her heart. And Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was hidden from the king that he did not tell her. And when the Queen of Sheba had seen all Solomon's wisdom and the house that he had built, all the food of his table, and the seating of his servants, and the station of his attendants, and their attire, and his cupbearers, and his ascent by which he would go up to the temple of Elohim, she was breathless. And she said to the king, "It was a true report that I heard in my country of your deeds and of your wisdom. However, I did not believe the words until I came and saw with my own eyes. And I have beheld that not even a half had been told to me. You have wisdom and benevolence in excess of that which I have heard. Fortunate are your men, fortunate are these your servants, who always stand before you and listen to your profound wisdom. Blessed be Elohim your God, who preferred to place you on the throne of Israel, because of Elohim's love for Israel forever. Elohim appointed you as king to do justice and righteousness." And she gave the king 120 talents of gold and very much spices and precious stones. There had never arrived such an abundance of spices as those which the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Also Hiram's ships that delivered gold from Ophir brought from Ophir a huge quantity of almug wood and precious stones. And the king made of the almug wood a path to the house of Elohim and to the king's palace, harps and psalteries to accompany the vocalists. There had come no such almug wood, nor has there been seen to this day. And King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba all her wish that she requested, aside from what he gave her according to King Solomon's ability, and she turned and went to her land, she and her servants. The weight of gold which came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold, aside from that which came through merchants and the commerce of spice peddlers, and all the dependent kings and all the regents of the land. And King Solomon made 200 body shields of malleable gold, 600 dinar of gold he would put into one body shield, and 300 shields of beaten gold, 3 manes, 300 dinar of gold he would put into one shield. And the king placed them in the house of the forest of Lebanon, and the king made an immense ivory throne and overlaid it with glittering gold. There were 6 steps to the throne, and the top of the throne was circular from behind, and there were arms on both sides by the place of the seat, and 2 lions standing besides the arms. And 12 lions stood there on the 6 steps on one side and on the other. No such throne was made for any kingdom. And all of the king's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the utensils of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None was of silver, since it was reckoned with as nothing in the days of Solomon. For the king had at sea ships of Tarshish with Hiram's ships. Once in 3 years the ships of Tarshish would come bearing gold and silver, ivory and monkeys and peacocks. Now King Solomon transcended all the kings of the earth in affluence and wisdom, and all the inhabitants of the earth sought Solomon's presence to hear the wisdom with which Elohim had endowed him. And each one would bring his gift, vessels of silver and vessels of gold, garments, weapons, spices, horses, and mules, the tribute due each year in its year. Solomon assembled chariots and horsemen, and he had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen. He led them in the chariot cities and with the king in Jerusalem. That is the story of Menelik. Where was Menelik in that story? That's a further story. The next story, the concluding story for this session, is the Yakafin. This comes from the tradition of Buddha. Specifically, it is an excerpt from the Payasi Sutta in the Digha Nikaya, the lengthy discourses of the Buddha. Again, this is the story of the Yaka fiend. Well then, Prince, I will give you a simile, for it is by way of a simile that some intelligent men discern the meaning of what has been said. Once upon a time, Prince, a great caravan of 1,000 carts was going from the east country into the west country. Wherever it went, it consumed swiftly straw, wood, water, and verdure. Now, in that caravan were 2 caravan leaders, each commanding 1/2 of the carts. And this occurred to them. This is a great caravan, one of 1,000 carts. Wherever we go, we consume everything. What if we were to divide this caravan into 2, 500 carts each? So they divided that caravan into 2 equal portions. Then one of the leaders collected large quantities of straw, wood, and water and started his carts. On the 2nd or 3rd march, the leader saw a swarthy, red-eyed man coming from the opposite direction, armed with a quiver, wearing a lotus wreath, his garments and hair wet, and driving a chariot drawn by asses, its wheels splashed with mud. When he saw this man, he said, "Whence come you, sir? Whither go you?" "To such and such a district." "Has there, sir, been any great fall of rain recently in the jungle?" "Yes, indeed, sir. There has been a great rain in the jungle just in front. The roads are well watered. There is much grass and wood and water." "Throw away the grass and wood and water, sir, you have already got. With light-laden carts you will go quite quickly. Do not tire your teams." Then the leader told his carters what the man had said, and bade them throw away their provender and wood, that the caravan might travel further quickly. "So be it, sir," the carters replied, and did so. But at their first camp they saw no grass or wood or water, nor at the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th camp. So they all met with ruin and disaster. And then that fiend, the Yaka, devoured all the men and the cattle in that caravan, leaving only the bones behind. When the 2nd caravan leader knew that the other caravan had got well on its way, he took in large supplies of grass and wood and water and set out. And he too met a swarthy, red-eyed man, and exchanged with him the same remarks, and was also bidden to throw away his provender. Then that leader said to his carters, "This man, sirs, says that there has recently been much rain in the jungle, that the roads are watered, and that there is plenty of grass and wood and water. And he advises us to throw away our provender, so that with lightened carts we may travel quicker and not weary our teams. But this man, sirs, is not a friend of ours, nor kinsman, nor of our blood. Why should we act as if we trusted him? Our stock of provender is not to be thrown away. Let the caravan proceed with the supplies we brought. Let us not part with what we have." "So be it, sir," agreed the carters, and went on with the stock they had loaded. And at 7 successive camping places they saw no grass or wood or water, but they saw the other caravan that had come to grief, and they saw the skeletons of the men and cattle devoured by that Yaka fiend. Then the caravan leader said to the carterers, "That caravan, my masters, met with ruin and disasters through having that silly caravan leader for its guide. Well then, let us leave here such of our wares as are of little value, and take from the caravan such wares as are of great value." "So be it, master," replied the carters, and made the transfer, and passed safely through the jungle, through having the wise caravan leader for their guide. And that is the story of the Yaka fiend from Buddhist tradition. And that wraps up this session numero 4 of Storytelling Therapy. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mir, zaijian, adios, te chakaris, esempe na asamuje, kele ufred. One love and peace, happiness, liberation.